I'm Allison Jonjak, the Cranberry Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. These videos are the on-demand recordings of UW Extension and the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association's virtual brown bag lunch series. These monthly sessions offer growers and researchers a way to share timely and relevant information. We hope you'll enjoy and continue to engage with us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grant Holly. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. We are very happy to be able to partner with UW Extension to bring you the research needed to be able to navigate our ever-changing environment. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today for their valuable time and leadership, the growers for joining us, and Allison for being the catalyst from which all of these sessions rely. Thank you so much.
So good morning as we cross over from 11:59 to noon, and welcome to the February 21st of 2025 brown bag. We have been having a good amount of questions. Usually our summer and growing season brown bags focus on the agronomic front, and then our February, March brown bags tend to focus on some of the more business related topics. And thanks to that, we're able to bring in some experts. This morning, you're gonna get to hear from Rick Grimm of FS, Inside FS, as well as Alyssa Foss of DATCP. Wanted to go over a quick couple pieces of housekeeping. If you prefer to have captions, you should be able to turn on captions with the little ... button and say transcript or captions, and those should show up for you. I am recording this session, and if you have questions over the course of the session, feel free to type those in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. If you'd like to ask an anonymous question, you can use that drop-down box that's, instead of from everyone, you can ask a question just to me, and then I'll ask it anonymously on your behalf. We do want to thank both UW-Madison Division of Extension for helping host these, along with the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. Since I don't see Grant on the call yet, I will give a quick, the Growers Association is working on a lot of fun projects, and I believe that among the things to be aware of in this coming month of February, March is that they're revamping the committee structure within WSCGA. Quick plug, if you would like to help guide how we set the agendas for these brown bags, as well as for Cranberry School and for the summer field day, you might want to request to join the membership committee and then the subcommittee education, because that education committee is where I get all the ideas of who to have speak. So I think we'll move right in from that to today. We're going to have some both very frequently requested topics. Rick Grimm is the Central Area Energy Manager for Inside FS, is going to give us a thorough review of on-road versus off-road fuel and other fuel considerations. We've been having questions to Rick on a regular basis this time of year, and so I'm happy to be able to share his thoughts with everyone on the call. And then we'll follow it up with Alyssa Foss, who handles the Worker Protection and Safety Program within Wisconsin DATCP. And Alyssa is going to work with you on how to ace a worker protection safety audit. So given all of that, and quick good mornings, and of course, if anyone sees Grant hop on, I'll let him speak for himself. But until then, let's go ahead and hand things over to Alyssa, who is with DATCP and is going to go over our worker protection and safety. And we do kind of have this nearly every year, but a little bit of refresher on acing a worker protection and safety audit, and any questions you might have along with that front. So Alyssa, I will stop sharing my screen and let you share yours.
Alrighty, well, hello everyone. Like Allison said, my name is Alyssa Foss. I work for the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. For the purposes of this meeting, we are talking about the Worker Protection Standard Program. So this is a federal program that is written in through FIFRA and the EPA And then the state of Wisconsin has also adopted that rule and that code. So not only is it listed federally, but it is also listed under state statute, which gives us the authority to conduct these inspections. So I will go, let's see here, next slide. There we go. Okay. So pretty much when you are using pesticide products, your agriculture chemicals on your crop, what's going to trigger needing a worker protection standard program is if you look at the pesticide product label, it's probably going to be that second page where the directions for use starts. There's going to be a box that's called the agricultural use requirements. And so this is the box that says, in order to use this label in accordance with the law, you do need to have a worker protection standard program. It's going to have pretty much some legal jargon on it. But within this box is where you're going to find the restricted entry interval for the product, as well as PPE required if anyone were to do early entry work for various reasons. And so this PPE is different than the normal PPE you would see on the pesticide product label. There's slight differences. Normally it can be the same, but we'll talk about the REI and what that means in a later slide. So if anyone's been through a worker protection inspection with DATCP and one of our inspectors, there's pretty much 6 key areas that we're looking at to check if you have a comprehensive program in place for your workers and handlers. So two things there. I just said workers and handlers. So workers are those who are going into a field after a pesticide application has been made to do maintenance of some sort with the crop. And handlers are those who are mixing and loading the pesticides as well as making the applications themselves. So what we look at in a worker protection inspection is covering these areas of talking about central information, going through safety training, making sure you have decontamination sites, what are the application restrictions after a pesticide application has been made, as well as during, making sure there is proper personal protective equipment, that it's in good working order, and that it's being worn. And then there's also a few exemptions, primarily if you're an establishment that just has it's yourself and immediate family working there, and what else we will do as part of these inspections is, if available, conduct a worker handler interview. Those are pretty straightforward. We're just asking a lot of verifying questions of, did you take training? Do you know how to access information on pesticides? Who tells you where pesticide applications are occurring? Do you know to stay out of the area? Very straightforward. We're not looking to trip anyone up and do tricks of whatnot. We value, working with the cranberry growers. They've always been great to work with. We've seen overall high compliance with the worker protection program. So you guys have been very diligent on that, and we thank you for that. So with DATCP and in the Agricultural Chemical Bureau, we have 14 field staff that are located across the state who will be the ones conducting the worker protection standard inspections on your establishment. So I have included the link here. If you, for whatever reason, need to contact them, their information is located on the DATCP website. Otherwise, Allison does have my contact info, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We like you guys, just be proactive with us. If you have questions, am I doing this right? Am I missing anything? Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? Please, feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to come to your establishment and work through, whatever questions you have, as opposed of us, showing up for a routine inspection, that we're initiating versus you initiating. We kind of have to put a different hat on. If you're initiating the conversation with us, we find issues, we'll correct them, no violations. If we're initiating the inspection, that's when we might have to, issue a warning notice, or depending on the severity of it, it might rise to the level of an investigation, but we have not seen that for quite some time with WPS. So next slide. So the first part of having a complete worker protection standard program is making sure you have an area set up that is what we call the central location information. So this is an area of your farm typically where workers and handlers are coming in, maybe checking out a general shared space that everyone would have access to this information. And so what we're looking at that you need to provide essentially is the safety data sheets for the pesticide products that may be used on the farm, as well as the pesticide application information. And then the third element of this is the worker protection standard poster. So this is a poster that's going to just talk about, staying away from pesticides, how to clean yourself properly. And then it is also a space for you to list the nearest medical information. So whether that be a hospital or a clinic, you can put their phone number and address on it in case anything were to happen. That information is readily available for you to call. And then also the part of that with having the safety data sheets easily accessible is a lot of that information, if someone were to come in contact with pesticide products and have an exposure, they're going to ask you to rattle off a lot of information potentially that would be located on that safety data sheet. So the easier you have to access this information, the better in case something were to happen. And so, part of the worker protection program is I listed the information that is required on the previous slide. Now we're going to talk about the application information that needs to be included. So what we're looking at is this is an easy way for you to relay communication about where pesticide applications are taking place on a readily available basis. And by that, I mean that the application information, not only are you required to inform your workers verbally of that the day of pesticide applications taking place, but then this application on whatever board or whatever system of an organization you have at your central location needs to be posted within 24 hours of that application finishing up. And so the application information that is required to be posted is obviously going to include the crop, so cranberries, the location of the bog, as well as what was the pesticide product name, its EPA registration number, what is the active ingredient in that product, the date of application, start and stop time, which is one of our frequently missed pieces of information, as well as the re-entry interval. And I talked about where you can find that. That's listed on the ag use requirements. So typically a lot of how we see this information set up at a central location is, you're going to see a bulletin board of some sort. Like in the picture examples I have, you can see the bulletin board in a couple pictures. On the side of the bulletin board, they included the worker protection poster, which has the local hospital contact information. And then on that bulletin board, they have the pesticide information split out. So what we see here is a whiteboard of the application information that can be filled out readily, easily. And this looks like it's going to include the location, the date, the product, active ingredient, or excuse me, maybe not active ingredient necessarily, but the date of application, start and stop time, re-entry. And then what we also see is a list of the most common products that they're going to use for that season. And this is where a lot of them will have posted the product name, EPA reg number, active ingredient. I think on here it also shows the REI as well, just so that, it's two ways to record the information, but this is how it has to be set up. And then in order for people to know and understand via location, there should be some sort of organization and communication taking place, whether the bogs have an identification number of some sort. Ideally we'd like to see a map or, some way of, you tell your workers and handlers, okay, I'm going to bog X, Y, and Z right now to make a pesticide application. They should be able to know what you're talking about and where. And so maybe having like a map of some sort available would be helpful to help with the location identification. So the next part of worker protection is going through pesticide safety training. So certified applicators with DATCP are exempt from needing this training. So if all of your workers and handlers are certified applicators with DATCP, great. They are exempt from needing the worker protection standard training. If you're bringing in potentially H2A workers or just hiring workers who maybe are not doing the pesticide application, let's say you have a certified applicator who makes the application and then you bring workers in to help with the bogs and whatever is needed. Those workers would need the annual training that is WPS. And so a certified applicator with your establishment can provide the training to workers who may not have a certification. And so you can find they're pretty much like a 20-minute WPS training video. If you Googled that, you would be able to find it. If you go to our DATCP webpage, we have a direct link to where you can find those approved training material. PERC is the national site that handles this, and that is the Pesticide Educational Resources Center. So their website is pesticideresources.org. That's where you can find if you wanted to give a verbal presentation with flip chart, video, or let's say you don't have anyone on your farm who is certified. What you can do is have someone take what's called the Train the Trainer course. This is put on through PERC. It's like a 2 to 3 hour presentation that you just kind of go through. You get a certificate at the end. And then that person on the establishment is good to provide training to any workers and handlers, regardless if they are certified or not. Generally, we like to see a lot of folks use the videos to be most helpful, and then they supplement that information with a general tour of the establishment, where to find the necessary information and identifications of bogs and whatnot. So a training record after you have provided safety training to your workers should include their worker name, address, as well as their signature, the date of the training, who the trainer was, and what their qualification is. So what we're looking for there is that they're a certified applicator, in which case just write in your certification number, or if they took the Train the Trainer course, employer name would just be the name of your establishment, as well as the training material used. So the safety videos for WPS all contain a unique ID number. You'll see it when you click on the video. Just record that. On our DATCP webpage for WPS, we do have example training record forms that you can easily print off and fill out. Just a reminder that these training record forms are required to be kept for 2 years after the training has been taken place. So make sure you guys are holding on to those records. If you want, I'd be more than happy to just send an email copy over to you if you are looking for it. So the next part with WPS is decontamination. So making sure that any worker or handler, as they're going out into a field that may have had an application or they are applying to, has the necessary decontamination supplies. So a worker who would not be making pesticide applications should have with them readily available 1 gallon of water, as well as access to soap and single-use towels. Wet wipes do not count in this instance. Please, provide them as you see fit. But this is what we're looking for essentially, as well as handlers, the ones making the application or doing mixing and loading, should have 3 gallons of water readily available, soap, single-use towels, change of clothes. If available, at your establishment, a great thing we like to see if eye protection is required with those pesticide products is having an eye wash station at hand. If you don't have a running eye wash station, have at least 6 gallons of water ready. And then as an applicator is making that application, they should have a pint of water just on their hip, easy access somewhere in the cab as those applications are going on, just in case they would come into contact somehow. I know in the cab, it seems unlikely, but these are the rules.
Can I ask one quick question that I
Yeah.
get for clarification sometimes? So for eyewash, either an eyewash station or 6 gallons of water, when we
Correct.
say the handlers should have 3 gallons of water or a worker should have 1 gallon of water, if a person has access to running water, does that override the requirement for having 3 gallons in a jug? And if so, how far is the distance between where the applicator is making their application or they're handling and mixing and that running water source?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for addressing that. So mixers and loaders, if they are mixing on site and there is an eyewash station at that local facility, they would not need the 3 gallons of water available. The 3 gallons of water is looking at coming into the field of application, having it set off on the side somewhere at the field is where we would like to see the 3 gallons of water. If you have running water, within a reasonable distance of the field, I would have to double check if there is a distance requirement. But that's where that stipulation takes place, if that makes sense. At the field of application, have 3 gallons of water sitting on a field edge, and then the applicator should have a pint with him. And if you're a mixer and loader at the establishment and you have access to an eyewash station, totally fine. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense in a way that is probably like immediately intuitive to row crop people who have their field is large and you'll be making an application in it, over a course of several hours versus a lot of times maybe we'd think of cranberry beds in like the 2 to 3 acre bed being in a block and having the water there. So I think if we had a distance clarification, that might help us understand a little better.
Okay. I will look at that and get back to you. Cool. But I mean, the 2 to 3 acre, you said the difference between cranberry and row crop, if those bogs are all sequential, you have it on a field edge, I would think it's fine. Okay. But I will double check that and get back to you.
That'd be awesome. Because I know stopping every 2 acres to move
we're not.
Water would result in more exposure than it would.
And we don't want that, obviously. That's not the intent of WPS. So, if that makes sense. And I can get back to you on that.
Definitely.
Okay. So then the next part of this, with decontamination. So actually this might answer your question, and I might just have brain fog going on right now, but within a quarter mile of nearest entry to vehicular access is where it should be. So I think that would answer your question, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So
sorry.
No, you're good.
I have a toddler at home who didn't sleep last night, so I apologize if I am not thinking through things clearly right now.
You are all good. So if you are within a quarter mile of where you have running water, then you don't need to also have the jugs.
Correct.
But if you're beyond a quarter mile, then you should have the jugs with you, at least for the block of beds you're working on.
Yep, spot on. There we go. I knew I had it on a slide. There we go. Perfect. Answers my question. Okay, so next part of this with decontamination, obviously, so quarter mile of access to the entry site. Making sure that it is obviously outside of an area that would be under an REI, which is that restricted entry interval. So an area that just recently had a pesticide application to it. Have it at any mixed load site. And then this is also a place essentially that workers or handlers, if they need to remove their personal protective equipment or potentially change their clothes. So the next part about this with the restricted entry interval and posting. So with this, depending on the length of the REI, this is going to tell you whether you need to verbally inform your workers and handlers of a pesticide application taking place and where, or if you can just put up the WPS sign. I'll have it on the next slide. At the area of application, just to make sure people are not coming in. So if a product is generally sometimes restricted use, they may have a dual notice under the agricultural use requirements where the REI is listed. So if this is a dual notice product, you are going to have to verbally inform your workers of that pesticide application taking place, as well as post the WPS poster at the field. Outdoor applications, if the REI is over 48 hours, you can just post at the field. If the REI is less than 48 hours, you have the option to verbally inform your workers or post the WPS sign at the field. So as you can see on the picture, this is the WPS Keep Out Danger poster. What we see a lot of times with these posters is if you choose to put it up or if it's required to put it up, it has to be put up at the start of the application, and it does have to be taken down within 3 days of that REI expiring. These signs cannot be used as no trespassing signs. If trespassing is an issue, you're concerned about it, please get separate signs that address the no trespassing. Please do not use your worker protection signs for no trespassing. Because what happens is that this can lead to confusion then essentially if those signs are posted 24/7 of whether a pesticide application has occurred. Or what happens is people become, aware of them so much to the fact that they're tuning them out, and then the signs are being ignored when they shouldn't be, if it's a permanent part of that surrounding. So then I think this is one of my last slides. If a pesticide product is requiring a respirator to be used, you must complete an annual medical evaluation and fit test. So you can do a self-fit test evaluation, or if you go to a medical clinic, you go in for your annual wellness checkup. That would be your medical eval, and then see if someone at the clinic would be able to offer a fit test. Keep that record then for 2 years. And then you should also be doing proper inspection on your respirator just to make sure that it's not damaged. Replace it, the cartridge, especially after 8 hours of use. If your breathing starts to get really hard through that respirator, or if you start to smell, taste, have some irritation that the something off-gassing from the pesticide might be coming in, that might be time to think about changing your respirator, getting a new one, because the fit may not be fitting properly. And then just make sure you are wearing the correct respirator per the product label. So that is all I have. Just wanted to say thank you so much, and I guess I'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, definitely appreciate all of the again, huge wealth of expertise we've been working with. We've been working together for several years now, and I know it's always DATCP is required to do so many audits per year, and when we're already doing everything right, then the audits are easier for you and easier for us. So we're
exactly
happy to have these before season check-ins to make sure everybody's got all their ducks in a row and everybody's safe, and we can prove that they're safe.
Definitely.
I do want to open and make sure that everyone's able to ask questions. I know we had a handful of worker protection audits within the Cranberry community last year, but I don't know if I see anyone who.
Yeah, so like I talked about, these inspections are all routine inspections. With having 14 field investigators across the state doing the inspections, you saw on the map, they all have their territory counties. So when I'm going through and assigning so many, inspections, what they're looking at when they're picking where to go is, one, if you've never been inspected, there's a good chance we're going to show up. Otherwise, we try to hit everyone, every 3 to 5 years, unless we're finding issues going on or things we need to correct with your worker protection program. But if you're getting, good results from us, you shouldn't see us again for a few years.
Very good. I will continue to make sure that people are able to ask questions, either from Alyssa or from Rick, if there's anything that has bubbled up to the surface that you want to ask a question about. I'm also going to give real quickly the upcoming next couple things that you can attend. So our March brown bag is going to feature Katie Gantus of the Cranberry Institute, and she's going to speak on new products that are being registered and the updates in IR4. So I'm putting that, this is a link to register for that Zoom meeting. And then the second speaker in March is going to be Chris Schlesta from Rural Mutual Insurance, and they're going to be talking about the legalities and legal ins and outs of on-farm trucking. For example, the road mileage limits with and without CDLs, the exemptions for trucking fruit versus sand versus equipment. And so that's that Friday, March 21st. We're also currently tentative, but the UW-Madison Division of Extension has hired a new bilingual farm labor outreach specialist, and he started in the dairy industry, but has a lot of experience with visas. And so we're going to have, tentatively, and as we make sure everything will work out, but I believe we're going to have him speak on March 14th about especially H-2A visas, information for cranberry growers who have been using them or who are curious about using them. I don't yet have a registration link for that one since we are still finalizing the details of it. But then we do have a registration, and I'm putting that in the chat right now, for our 2025 spring mini clinic. And that is going to be in our usual fashion. We're going to have a live location. It's going to be at the Cranberry Research Station in Millston. We're going to have live stream locations so everyone can gather with their local community without having to drive, hopefully less than an hour for everybody. So Robert Detlefson will be hosting a live stream location in Cranmore at Whittlesey Cranberry Company. Stephen Bartling will be hosting a Manitowish Waters location up in Manitowish Waters. And then Tyler Gardner will be hosting a location at Jack Link's Aquatic Center in Minong. So we'll have all of our major growing regions will have an easy way to gather. And our mini clinic is going to be on Thursday, April 10th. It's going to run from 12:30 to 3:30. We're going to have topics that include herbicide timing. We're going to have a grower and researcher panel on sulfur use. We're going to have a grower panel on the nematode versus flea beetle applications that have been going on the last couple of years. Discussion of dissolved oxygen, dew point frost refresher, through bloom progression counts. So that'll be a lovely day, and everyone should go ahead and register for that at their chosen location. And then I think we are ready to, I'll glance at my time one more time. I guess it's 1:02. Any other questions, whether for Alyssa or for Rick? Then I will thank you all for joining today. Thanks to Alyssa and to Rick for giving us the benefit of all of your expertise to make keeping things on the farm a little more straightforward and have all of our filing cabinets in order. And I will go ahead and stop the recording, and thank you all for joining today.